Perrin should be married to Laila Aybara, and Laila should die. Hello, I'm the Badger Reborn, and I'm going to discuss why I've changed my mind about Perrin, and I now hope that he begins the Wheel of Time Amazon Prime TV show Married, and experience the tragedy of his wife's death early in the season. Though this does not happen in the books, this video does contain spoilers for other future events in the story. If you wish to avoid being spoiled on these things, then I would suggest finishing the books first, which I hope you're already working on. Then come back and see whether you agree. I'll start by saying that for those who haven't seen my videos before, I absolutely love Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, especially the characters. I would be thrilled to see it adapted exactly as Jordan wrote, no changes at all, onto the big screen. However, we know that TV shows make changes. Some of them are good. But I don't just think that this change would be okay. I believe that this would actually be a change that improves the character of Perrin and makes his plotline more relatable in an unlikely way. In Eye of the World, Perrin is a careful and measured man who thinks through decisions and cares deeply about the people around him. He loves his family, though he rarely thinks of them. Instead, he focuses his thoughts mostly on the Luhans, who he has been living with as he learned to be a blacksmith. When he returns to Emond's Field and finds out that his family has been murdered, it leads to an intensely emotional scene. However, when I think about the scene, the emotion comes mainly from Robert Jordan's writing, rather than from any real established emotional connection between Perrin and his family. We know that an actress, Helena Westerman, has been cast for a role named Laila Aybara. In the books, there's a character named Laila who Perrin thought that he would marry if he had stayed in Emond's Field. This has led some fans to speculate that Laila and Perrin will be married at the beginning of the show. Sometimes that speculation continues, with Laila still being alive in Emond's Field until Perrin gets back with Faile, or would die right before Perrin gets back with Faile, Loial, and Gaul. While this would lend some extra emotional weight, I think it's problematic for several reasons, but the main reason being that showing up to your wife's house with your new girlfriend is not great, unless you're Rand. Furthermore, Perrin could not start courting Faile immediately after his wife died and still remain a good man and favorite character in the eyes of fans. Instead, I think we'll see a scene with Perrin and his either wife or fiancée Laila in the first episode of the show, and then she will be killed by Trollocs either in that same episode or the second episode. This would give Perrin a unique backstory from Rand and Mat, since Mat's family is totally fine and Tam was saved while Kari had previously died. Neither Rand or Mat had that sort of romantic backstory, and neither would have that tragedy. By itself, this is a good reason for the change, but not enough to make this big alteration from Robert Jordan's work. I think there's an even better reason. In shows, it's important to make the characters feel unique right from the beginning for a new audience. And one frequent complaint about The Eye of the World is that the boys feel too generic. If Perrin was married and then lost his wife, his backstory becomes much more sympathetic and memorable. I was previously of the mind that this would still be an issue with Faile, since Perrin begins really being romantic with her as early as the end of Dragon Reborn, Book 3, which would potentially fall as early as the middle of Season 2. When I thought about it more, however, and discussed it with other fans on Discord, I've changed my mind. While I still think this timeline is correct, a season and a half, or maybe more like 3 seasons depending on how fast they go, would actually be quite a long time in the scope of TV shows. The timeline will likely be expanded in the show too, so what is about a year in the books could be more like 2 years in the show. That's a reasonable amount of time for Perrin to mourn his young wife. When returning to the Two Rivers with Faile and finding the rest of his family dead, Perrin would be crushed. Not only would he have failed to protect his wife on Winter Night, but he also arrived too late to save his family. Every single relative he knows of would be dead, and he could blame himself for each death. His inability to fight, his inability to take action and leave the Zone of Tears sooner. The result would be one of two outcomes. Perrin might push Faile away, fearing to get too close to anyone again. In fact, I think this would happen briefly, resulting in Perrin sending Faile to get help from Andor. However, with her return with the reinforcements, and her insistence that she isn't leaving Perrin, Perrin would break down and allow himself to fall in love with Faile. Perhaps the wedding could be pushed then, or maybe it would happen earlier. This would lead to the second outcome, Perrin becoming extremely protective of Faile, to the point where he is terrified of any harm befalling her, and is willing to put other priorities in the second place when a threat of danger to Faile is presented. And that's the real benefit. One of the primary gripes that fans and new readers have with the Wheel of Time is the slog, and many point particularly to the Perrin sections. Perrin is consumed with a desire to get Faile back, and seemingly cannot think about anything else. For such a measured and thoughtful character in the books, this strikes many as odd and unfitting. The change I've proposed fixes that disconnect. It would be very, very understandable why Perrin would be so terrified at the thought of Faile being kidnapped and killed by the Aiel, and totally relatable why he would be consumed with a desire to save her, against all odds and above all other priorities. Perrin would not be able to live with himself if another person he loved died while he was away. It also enhances one of the main arcs of Perrin's storyline, and the primary arc of his romance. When he finally accepts Fail going into danger without being there to protect her, this would become an even stronger moment in the show, because the viewers understand what a huge deal that is for Perrin. A possible extra benefit is that Fael's jealousy, which is another issue people point to in the books, would be a bit more understandable, since she knows that he loved another woman before her, and Fael might initially feel that she needs to live up to that standard in Perrin's mind and heart, and would be scared that Perrin doesn't love her as much as he loved Laila. All in all, I think it's pretty clear that adding a plotline of Perrin having a wife or fiancé who dies on Winter Night would be an improvement for the TV show. But what would be the downsides? The only real downside I see is changing Robert Jordan's work. But I think the benefits to the plotlines and characters that I've mentioned outweigh the inherent risk of a change like this. That wasn't always my belief, but I've been presented with an alternative viewpoint. I considered and weighed it, and I changed my opinion to one that seems more rational. So let me ask you, what are your thoughts on having Perrin married at the beginning of the show? Let me know in the comment section whether you see it as an improvement, a wait and see, or a big downgrade. Now I'm going to read some comments from the previous videos. MK Ganest said, I totally agree with all of this, and I mean, how could you not? I don't even need to tell you which video that's from, because obviously all of my ideas are gold. On my previous video comparing the benefits of a binge or weekly release, Cody Fount said, great video. Agree that weekly release will be better for the show's popularity and growth. So many mysteries in the series, got to give time for folks to theorize, discuss, and build hype. Also, you make a great point about the number of talented WoT creators already doing great work. Imagine how much discussion will be generated week to week when we actually get to see the show. Speaking of talented WoT content creators, Lesbian Nerdy, who has an excellent channel herself, said, I absolutely agree with you. I so hope for a weekly release. I think it is so much better for the show. It gives the show time to gather momentum too, and it lasts longer in the minds of more people. I remember binging the first season of Stranger Things and loving it. But I haven't watched any of the newer seasons because I kind of forgot about it. And selfishly, as a content creator, I want to review the episodes. And I want to review them before the next one comes out. If they do one release at a time, I will have to use all my willpower to not watch the next episode before I do a review. And I don't trust myself to do that. I totally agree with you, Lesby, and like honestly, I wouldn't even bother with trying to use my willpower to not watch the next episode. I would just watch them all the way through, and then I would also want to make reviews like you said. I would just have to go back and make one for each episode for a show I've already watched the whole thing of, which would just feel kind of dumb. Chuck Johnson had an awesome comment and offered a different approach though. He said, personally, I'm in favor of a weekly release schedule. However, given the growing appetite among consumers of streamed media, I have previously offered a compromise solution on other forums. That would be to do bunched releases of episodes, say 3 episodes every 2 weeks. This satisfies some of the binge appetite, while still giving breaks in the season to allow for discussion among fans, reviews and commentary by content creators, and an increase in the word-of-mouth buzz. Admittedly, since they have opted to go with the shorter season model of only having 8 episodes, it makes this suggestion more problematic. So maybe allowing for the 8-episode season, it could be a 2-episode every week and a half schedule, since streaming services are not tied to any particular day of the week for dropping content. So 8 episodes would have 1 and 2 drop, then a week and a half later 3 and 4, followed by 5 and 6, and then a nice juicy season wrap-up with 8 and 9 dropping 4.5 weeks after the initial 2 seasons. This stretches the view time frame out to a month, rather than having viewers burn through it in a week or less. While it is not as favorable as almost 3 months that they would get from an episode per week format, which is what I suggested, it does still offer many of the benefits you outlined for both approaches. I think that's pretty reasonable for sure. I would prefer your approach over a total binge release style, but I don't really like the aspect of a week and a half. I think if you're going to do weekly, and you want to make it an event, which you do, or I do at least, it needs to be a consistent day every week so people know on Sundays Game of Thrones is coming out. On Mondays, whatever show is coming out. On Saturdays, maybe it's Wheel of Time. Maybe it's Sunday nights again. But having that consistent thing, so I think even if it's every 2 weeks, you drop 2 episodes. I'm not sure if that really works for people, but maybe it would be the best kind of compromise approach. Finally, on my video detailing my fun theory that Min is a dark friend, Brian Klinkle said, another great video, Badger, but no. I can handle Min being called a sexy lamp, but not a dark friend. You are lucky she isn't around to hear you say that, because she would probably smack you upside the head and call you a wool-brained sheep herder. I do hope they give her an extended role in the show. I loved her and Rand's relationship. Brian, yeah, I totally agree with you. Despite that video, and what some of you might feel about my opinions on Min, Min's one of my top 5 favorite characters. I really resent her being called a sexy lamp. I don't think it's even remotely true. think she's a major part of the story and has a lot of agency of her own, and I'll make a video discussing that at some point in the future. I love Min, and I think she's a fantastic character. That's it for today. If you have not subscribed to my channel, what are you doing? Go ahead and subscribe. Also, give this video a like and share it with other people you think might enjoy it. Before you go, I want to plug a Wheel of Time quote tournament that I'm doing on Twitter. I'm trying to find the best quote from the Wheel of Time. Started with a pool of 50 quotes, and it's now down to 32, or at least it is at the time I'm shooting this video. It will be down lower than that quickly. There are 2 polls running each day right now, so check out my Twitter account, still the Badger Reborn, and vote on your favorites in the quote tournament. We'll see what's the absolute best quote from the entire Wheel of Time series. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Though this does not happen in the books, this video does contain spoilers for other future events in the story. If you wish to avoid spoilers.